Hi everyone, Happy New Year. Reverend Sarah Grady from St. Paul's United Church in Paris, Ontario. Just checking in, seeing how 2021 is treating you. It is a new year, and for lots of us that is a really important thing. 2020 was not awesome for a lot of us, but there was wonderful things that still happened within this year where we learned just how far we can be tested and pushed to our limits, I think, for many of us. So I hope that over the holiday season, you were able to gather with some family and friends, connect with people in whatever way that looked, virtually, outside, around a campfire, something like that. And for those of you who were able to bubble with family members, I hope that you had some wonderful moments of fun and joy and laughter and grace. In our passage this week, our chapter this week is talking about Jesus's coming of age. And what an interesting thing it is in our Bible stories, in all of our gospel narratives, that we hardly have any information about Jesus other than his birth and his public ministry and then his death. And then, of course, the things that transpired after his death. But we really don't have any stories about Jesus as a toddler. We have nothing that we can definitively say or know about him as he learned and grew, talking, walking, those formative years when he would have began his early education. So we don't really have any of that information. However, in the Gospel according to Luke, we have this one story, a very interesting one, about Jesus getting lost. Or as a matter of fact, not lost, but staying behind when his family went to the festival of Passover, and he decided when it was time to go that he wasn't done learning. He was curious, and so he stayed behind with the rabbis and the scholars to continue his learning, and he was too curious. And it was 3 full days before his parents noticed and turned around. And you may be thinking to yourself, Mary and Joseph, 3 full days. But back in that time, it would have been people traveling in groups. And the term "it takes a village" would have applied back then, because they probably would have assumed when they hadn't seen Jesus for 3 days that he was traveling with another family, eating with them and getting his rest with them. And so it wasn't until they were home or almost home that they realized, as the crowds were dispersing, he's not with anybody else, and so they had to turn around and go and pick him up. I bet there was a lot that was learned in that time for Mary and Joseph. I have a story in my own family, and it's me that was the one who stayed behind one time. And every time I read this passage, I think back to this time in my own life when I was about 4 or 5 years old. I'm one of 7 children, but at that time there was just 6 of us, which is still a lot of kids for my parents to be responsible for and looking after, and seeing where everybody is at all times. And we'd gone out to the Science Center to watch a movie at the IMAX theater there. On the way back to the car at the end of the movie, they were giving out free popcorn. They'd been selling it beforehand, but they had all this left over, I guess, so they were giving away free popcorn, and I got some, and I was eating it as we were walking towards the exit. It was pouring rain. My dad had gone ahead to get the family station wagon and pull it around, and for some reason, my curiosity got the better of me, and I wondered, could I get just one more bag to take with me? Well, I went back to get more popcorn. My family ran to the car, and the buddy system in the car broke down when everybody was checking in. Is everybody here? Is everybody here? My brother Ian and I would have been seated in the very back of the station wagon. Do you remember those were the seats that folded down so you were looking backwards? Well, my parents listened, and my brother Ian said yes for me as well, so they drove away. It wasn't until 45 minutes later, when they were almost home in Etobicoke, that they realized that, in fact, I had not answered yes. It had been Ian mischievously answering yes for me. So they had to turn around and go all the way back out to the East End, where they found me not in tears, but surrounded by all these male security guards, all doting on this little girl in pigtails with a giant garbage bag full of popcorn as my reward for my misbehavior in not staying with my family and getting lost. But it's easy to happen. So that's just a little bit of a funny story from my own family history, and I'm sure my parents, every time they hear this passage in Luke 2, think back to that time. And I can't say with certainty that it wasn't the first time that one of us got left behind, never for very long, but with that many children, especially when we added a seventh into the mix. You can imagine that sometimes one of us would get left behind for a couple of minutes or so. In our questions this week, I actually am not sure I want to talk about the questions, but there is one thing that it talks about, which is the activation part of thinking about this passage, because this is the beginning in this passage actually of Jesus's curiosity. We get to see this first glimpse of his thirst for knowledge and of deepening his relationship with God, because he was so curious that he had to stay behind and continue learning from the rabbis and the scholars and listening to what they had to say. Well, this week's activation part is, this week look for every chance to grow in wisdom by listening, learning, and asking questions. And I actually think this is the perfect time to do that. Normally when we get to this time of year, as we end one calendar year and we begin another one, we do the making of resolutions. Well, I'm not so sure I believe in the making of resolutions anymore, because I think sometimes it sets us up for failure. You know, the resolution to lose that weight or kick that bad smoking habit or drinking or whatever it is for you, pick up reading more books, all of that kind of thing. And I'm wondering if this year, to help us to grow in wisdom, to listen, to learn, and to ask questions, if we could, instead of setting resolutions, set intentions. Intentions to do more outreach. Intentions to do more for our neighbors, our family, our friends. Intentions to connect more with one another. Intentions to listen more deeply rather than always wanting to jump in and insert our own opinions in conversations. There are lots of possibilities for the intentions that we can set for the year 2021. We've only just begun this year. It is full of fresh hope and fresh possibilities. And so I pray that as we begin this new year, as we look forward to continuing our growth and our deepening of our understanding of God, that you find ways to continue to connect with one another, to connect to the divine, and to connect with us at St. Paul's. Let us know what things you might need from us. Continue to let us know how we can help you and the ways that you might need us to pray for you or with you. Wherever you are this day, my friends, I hope that you are happy. I hope that you are safe. I hope that you are well, and that I will see you soon. Talk to you later.